Yeah, thanks everybody for your contributions. It's a fascinating discussion here today. I want to go to the Minister first, and this is both a criticism of you but really a question at the core of what you are arguing here today. Repeatedly, you have mentioned the war in Ukraine as being at the sort of root of the problem that we're facing. We're here today to discuss the supply of electricity, and you've repeatedly mentioned it in terms of the price. Now, what's really good about this is that both yourself, Ursula von der Leyen, EirGrid and crew have finally admitted that the market is a problem. The mechanisms in the energy market are a problem. Your solution is they need to be reformed. Nobody is questioning that the market can be reformed, and nobody is actually arguing that maybe it's time that states took ownership of this crucial part of society, which is the supply of energy. I would contend that that is what needs to be done. However, you're saying that we need to give the question of the price of gas our undivided attention. And the undivided attention will be on the lines, as has been argued by others, that we need to separate away what the cost of renewables is, what the cost of other forms of production of energy are from the cost of gas. That's not rocket science. It is, however, how the market has worked up to now. So I really welcome the change in heart and the approach towards the market. But what is happening here is that never once in your speech, and until you were asked directly, did you mention the question of data centres and the usage. Yet we're here today to look at what do we do about supply. And 14% of our supply is going directly into data centres. We're an outlier. Globally, we're an outlier in terms of our approach to this topic. And in line with what Senator Higgins has just asked about and said, I want to argue and really put it to you, Minister, and to others here, that our policy around facilitating data centres is absolutely insane. And it is not just that you've sat down with them and had a discussion and they've looked at backup generation and this, that and the other. In the here and now, we have over the next 2 to 3 years given a commitment and an agreement to 8 mega data centres to connect to the grid, using up another 1.5 gigawatts of energy. This is insane, and it has nothing to do with the war in Ukraine, and it has nothing to do with the price of gas. We're talking about supply, and I'd like you all to try and address that. And your solution, Minister, to the lack of energy that's coming on stream is to call on people to reduce their use, to look at tariffs when they come home to make the dinner and wash the kids' clothes, to look at extra tariffs and that, to reduce their use, to do things differently. Where is the call on the data centres to reduce their expansion and to reduce their use? That's not coming anywhere. It's unbelievable stuff. The only call is for them to get diesel back up, which has been said by the Senator, flies in the face of our policy to reduce emissions in line with the climate crisis. I specifically want to ask a question of Mr Foley from EirGrid, because you see, you're saying it both in your written submission and in your replies today that demand and growth is not a problem and that doesn't present us with any kind of a crisis. Now, I looked back at the statement presented by EirGrid to us in May 2021, and data centres are mentioned 16 times as being at the heart of the problem of the demand and growth, and that there's a warning there that something has to be done. Now, what is the change of heart within, 12 to 14 months that says data centres were a problem 14 months ago, and at that stage they were only using 30% of their peak demand? If they were to use all their demand, that adds more and more onto us, and now we've signed up to agreements to 8 more mega users. There's something really amiss in the policy here and how we're presenting it. The only person I heard admitting that there is a problem, I'd like to ask her this, is Ms McAvelli from Crew, when she said that the demand of 9% in the last 5 years is a problem. And I'd like to ask you, do you know how we compare in terms of our increased demand to other European or other countries? Because I think that's an important thing. Okay. Are we an outlier on that as much as we are an outlier in the way we facilitate the growth of data centres? And very finally, can we please look at the question of how we are going to deal with the energy crisis and prices for the ordinary people who'll be hanging on to our every word here today, and there isn't a single proposal that makes any kind of comfort or gives them any comfort about what is going to happen over the winter. And I'd like to hear something concrete come from all three, both the Minister, EirGrid and Crew.
Thanks, Deputy Minister.
Firstly,
Yeah, as I said, the focus here has been on the supply issue and this very real issue around capacity generation and our auction system and so on. But we could not meet here today without recognising that the absolutely beyond compare challenge facing our people is the high price of energy, which is separate and not related to that, which is related to the war in Ukraine. And that is the source and cause of the problem. That is why gas markets are now at 14 times their historic average. And we couldn't sit here and couldn't discuss the issue about energy security or policy and not actually recognise that. And the solutions to it will not be easy. Well, as we said over the last year, won't be able to cushion every blow, but it will be in social welfare and other budget measures. It is in the Reduce Your Use campaign. That is important, that we give and help our people and help directly in terms of insulation and other mechanisms. Could be putting solar panels up. There's a whole variety of different measures, and also reducing use. And those 900,000 homes with smart meters, and there'll be 1 million at the end of the year. Yes, being clever in terms of starting to tap into cheaper tariffs. That's one of the real advantages on the time of use. It actually gives people a practical way of solving their bills, because the bill problem is the biggest problem beyond compare facing government, not just this government, but every government in Europe. And we have to focus on that. We have to be honest about that. We have to articulate it and understand what's happening. And included in that, we'll be going to the European Council next week. But I don't expect a miracle cure coming out of the Council. Let's be upfront and honest about it, because the gas price is where it is. And so I have no apology in terms of us of broadening it out, if I can, to look at that issue as well. With regard to data centres, and in fairness, my recollection of this over the last 2 years coming to government, EirGrid, I think, came to me early on in that summer 2020 and said there was a real problem. And if I recall rightly, we pretty much stopped any new connection or committing to new connections then, September 2020. But as a state, we don't, if we've made a decision prior to that and said we're going to give you a connection, well, then we don't revoke. We don't go back on our word in general as a state, wherever we can. Even in a crisis? Even in a crisis, you try and make sure that you're a place where people say you do what you say. But what we heard here today is important, that they too have a role as part of that 500 megawatts of demand response type operators, that they also do. Yes, we will talk and look to every operator to say, as part of that 15% reduction as well, to see, can we manage or be flexible? Because everyone has to be involved in this. Because they'll also find, those businesses, a lot of businesses are going to have real difficulty because the prices are so high. It's in their interest to start to have demand management and demand flexibility. Crew went further in November 2021 and setting out the specific new rules, being actually kind of strategic in saying, in terms of new data centres, how it will work and not this 8 that are due to be connected. No, because they were prior to the summer of 2020. 1.5 gigawatts of extra energy. They're prior to the summer of 2020, and as I said, we are not. But I'm not responsible for what went on in those previous years. But we don't, as a country, over the years, we've made it, I think, a principled that you don't. The state doesn't just change tack or say to you one day one thing and then one day the next. I'm sorry, that's not my experience on many issues. Well, I think it's important that we do that, because then people, and be it the citizen, be it the lowly in a republic, it's whether that's someone in the most dire circumstances or corporation, the same rules need apply. We deliver what we say we will deliver. And what we need to deliver now, we need to deliver the 2 gigawatts of gas interconnection, gas capacity, so we keep the lights on. That's absolutely essential, and we need to work together collectively to do that. And we're not there yet. We're in the middle of this. We're not out of it. And we have to really focus on whether that's in our planning system, or whether it's working with the companies, or whether it's working with any agency. We have yet to deliver. We have to, a single megawatt of that 2,000 is not yet delivered. That's our focus, delivering it. But at the same time, but more importantly, it's recognising that we're in an absolute crisis. People are not going to see it really coming until the bills hit in November, December, January, February. And at the moment, the way this war is looking, there's no end in sight. And that's the most frightening thing for the people of Ukraine, for all the people involved. But for European consumers, Irish included, We're in the middle of this now. It's hitting home in our bills, and we have to protect our people in that process.
And how are you going to do that? That was my final question. What
Budget will be a
exact
key,
mechanisms?
key element in a significant further supports, addition to the $2 billion we've already spent of the public money in the last year. We need to go further, and we'll work with the Department of Public Expenditure and Department of Finance to try and do that to the best of our ability. And also helping people to show how you can save. Reducing your use is going to be critical. At the scale of the prices, that's going to be an absolute thing that the public are going to be rightly want good advice and the ability to deliver. That's the key way.
Thank you, Minister. And the regulator, Ms McAvilly.
I think just the direct question was, how do we compare with other EU member states in terms of data centre demand? I don't actually
No, it wasn't. It was in terms of the increased energy demand, the 9%.
Yeah, do you have any? No, we can come back to you on that, Deputy.
My question really is, are we exceptional? Are we different? Is this normal? Is this unusual?
We can come back to you on that. Some of the growing demand is a challenge in other member states. What I think we're saying is it is a challenge for us, and that's what we're focused on.
Well, if I could get an answer on the comparisons, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, we will come back to you separately on that. And I think the other was around the measures for customers, or the assurances for customers, and I would simply agree with Minister Ryan. I think the real issue for this winter is high costs, and we will all be working collectively with the department to do whatever we can to support customers in that context.